Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and here's a big one, at least for me. Today we're going to be talking about the newest album from Marianas Trench, Phantoms. So I won't mince words, I was really nervous about covering this album. And I'm not sure why. Marianas Trench is the sort of stridently Canadian pop rock act that's never let me down, with two albums under their belt that are damn near classics, 2009's Masterpiece Theater and 2015's Astoria, which if you all remember the latter, it was my top album of that year. And I'll admit part of this was just nervous jitters that aren't all that rational. Frontman Josh Ramsey is one of the most powerful vocalists working today and a terrific technical songwriter. He's one of the big reasons most of you know who Carly Rae Jepsen even is, and you would think that would be enough just to have faith that this could be an incredible album. But I'll admit I was kind of nervous regardless. It has been 4 years since Astoria, and pop rock has changed a lot since 2015. Too many promising acts in their lane have either gone pure pop to diminishing returns or outright collapsed. And while Marianas Trench have been unafraid to chase their own lanes before, the few moments I didn't like on Astoria did come through succumbing to questionable modern trends. And more to the point, Astoria had felt like the culmination of a lot of larger stories that had run through Masterpiece Theater and 2011's Ever After, a semi-autobiographical narrative put to bed for new beginnings ahead, and I just had no idea what to expect. I hadn't checked out any of the singles, I was going in cold, taking the full album experience. For as relentlessly catchy as those singles can be, I still hold Marianas Trench to be an album act. So what did we get out of Phantoms? So alright, this was a perplexing listen, and kind of a tough one to analyze as a singular work or especially as an entry point to Marianas Trench, and that's because it's something you so rarely see in album releases. A coda to a previous album. Almost the equivalent of a fully playable expansion pack where you might not care all that much about the original campaign, but you probably want to play the original in the first place just to gain the full context. Not quite a sequel either. Now, that absolutely means that Phantoms feels like a bit of a lesser project in comparison with Astoria or Masterpiece Theater. It's shorter, it's tighter, it only touches on the bigger cinematic experience of previous projects and melodic motifs, and while this means it doesn't quite have the epic scope of earlier albums, that doesn't precisely make it worse. No, that primarily comes from some choices in the writing and production and composition that might make sense within the modern pop landscape, but don't exactly help Phantoms feel as potent as it really could. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's absolutely a great album, but there are missteps, and I sincerely hope that Marianas Trench is able to pivot into a fresh lane coming off of this project. And you know what? I'll admit that's really frustrating for me to say, especially when you realize that with every single record, Josh Ramsey somehow winds up sounding better than ever before. And I'll say it, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better singer in his lane in rock or even pop right now. In between the multi-tracked arrangements and the simply unbelievable vocal register, the only one I think who comes even close is Brendan Urie, and I still think that Josh Ramsey puts him under the table. If you're just here for sheer stunning performances, you're absolutely gonna get that. Even the interplay he's got with Jellyfish frontman Roger Joseph Manning Jr. on Echoes of You shows just how well he can balance a song without blowing his counterpart out of the water. That reflects a poise and a maturity that many frontmen of his caliber just do not have. But here's the problem. People with insane pop star vocals, they're not really a thing in the mainstream right now, mostly because the fidgety, dense percussion and the desaturation of modern trap doesn't exactly flatter huge voices or huge personalities. And whether it be from a label note or the band's desire to position something with more accessible potential, there are definitely songs on Phantoms, both in the production and composition, that are trying to make a play for some of that mainstream territory, and they land with mixed results. Like the pitch-shifted drop on Don't Miss Me, or the squealing, twisted tones comprising the abortive drop on The Death of Me. Hell, the bare acoustics, the clip pickup, and the mid-tempo bounce of the post-chorus on I Knew You When, complete with some of the trap whirs, they sound like something that could be given to Justin Bieber or maybe Shawn Mendes in a pinch. Now, granted, this is not new. I'll say it again. Marianas Trench has always made a couple songs on every project that fit within the mainstream climate. And even if they gave it to somebody else, it would be an upper tier song from an artist like that. I have to give Josh Ramsey a lot of credit for production that can still fit within the mainstream while still giving his vocals room to breathe and sounding cohesive within the whole project. This saying nothing of holding a strong melodic groove and a really great hook the majority of the time. But Marianas Trench, they can punch a little higher than this, let's be honest. And if they had opted to take the focus into truly darker or more gothic tones, and between goth rock or post-punk or even symphonic metal, there are plenty of palettes they could draw upon, it could have given the project a little bit more mystique or epic presence. And while I'm on that subject, yeah, I know, you could say I'm stuck in the past or more of a rock snob, but when the guitars actually get their moments to truly roar on this project, they are emblematic of past climaxes that are sadly just a little more infrequent on Phantoms. And again, that's not saying that their choice to burrow into even tighter new wave grooves that owe their debt to the mid to late 80s tones, that's not saying it's a bad choice. The smoky shimmer, the lead guitar work on Only the Lonely Survive, it's got some flickers of classic U2 there, and then the tight poppy grooves of Your Ghost built off the grainy drum machines and the vocal layering, got a bit of a trace of In Excess there. And then you get the buzzy sense of Wish You Were Here that most clearly fits into Marianas Trench's established tones. It's a highlight for me. But I'll be honest, when this album ramps up the gothic swell on Echoes of You with the whirling symphonic elements, the cavernous strings, the bells, or how The Killing Kind brings a gargantuan haunted reprise, including the nods to theatricality of mid-2000s pop rock, especially in the vocals, and an instrumental motif making an out-of-nowhere return that's the most triumphant point of the entire album. Look, they're the points that highlight just how special Marianas Trench is as an act when they're allowed to cut loose, go for broke, fuck the mainstream, just make something special and raw and powerful. But you also might notice that I haven't really torn into the desaturated tones and the influx of reverb that are emblematic of so much modern pop with this album. And to get into that, we gotta talk about the lyrics and the themes. And again, like with an act like, say, Billie Eilish, I gotta give the band props for leaning into the obvious, and actually, it's kind of so straightforward, I'm surprised more acts don't do it. If pop is gonna sound so damn ghostly and creepy and bleak, why not make that the central running motif and metaphor of the project, along with a healthy dose of Edgar Allan Poe worship, because, let's be honest, one drama queen deserves another. And yet, if that was all that Josh Ramsey was doing with this, that'd be one thing. A nifty thematic conceit, maybe stretched a little too thin thanks to entirely too much syllable repetition and stuttering to fill up space in the lyrics. But remember how I said this album feels like an expansion pack or a coda? Well, if the lyrical art set my suspicions alight, the fact that The Killing Kind includes a blatant melodic motif that runs through Astoria, that's the big one. And that makes Phantoms an interesting continuation indeed. Keep in mind that Astoria was a breakup album, the culmination of the previous two projects worth of emotions and songs written about a significant other who is now out of the picture. And not only did Josh Ramsey have to place it all in context for himself, he had to deal with her making a return and him making the conscious choice to set that part of his life aside for good. But if Phantoms highlights anything, it's never that simple. And just like the arc of Jason Isbell's Nashville sound after Something More Than Free, the darker impulses of the mind cannot be so easily set aside on will alone. And Phantom shows just how much her ghost hides around every curve of this project, triggering the sort of second guessing and overthinking that can so easily be maddening. And yet what's so damn potent is that our protagonist knows exactly how bad reconsidering her and relapsing might be, not just in terms of the emotional damage just waiting to be exposed again. This was not a good relationship that worked, but also given his culpability and how it all fell apart, it leaves him second guessing even the good decisions he made. But what I appreciate is that for as operatic as this project can strain to be, and as melodramatic, there are some real grounding moments for the drama. Don't Miss Me highlights how despite his flimsy denials that he doesn't miss her, there's a very real possibility Shoes moved on and doesn't feel anything close to the same as him. To quote the song, some people try to raise the dead, some people try to live instead. But here's where the real tragedy strikes, because songs like Your Ghost, they're fully aware of the weight that's pressing on his psyche. And Glimmer is fascinating in how it plays with the imagery and metaphors of light. How when you burn so bright with confidence, you don't see those sparks of hope, but in the pits of darkness, you can see a glimmer. And yet even then on the second verse, he's self-aware that this is all still so wrong. She might have changed years later, but not enough to make it work. And yet there's still enough in entrenched in his memory, that work that he clings to, those human moments. And when we realize on The Death of Me that there is a current partner in this picture, it's the abortive breakup moment that comes with his own guilt that he can't fully be committed with someone new if he hasn't purged the ghosts of his past. And that takes us to The Killing Kind, where we have to examine Edgar Allan Poe's 1842 short story Eleonora, a prelude which titled the same opening of this album, where love springs for the wrong reasons but is cut short by death. And by the end, Edgar Allan Poe's protagonist has found to love anew, despite having pledged to never love another. And it's very easy to see the parallel within Phantoms, and for a second you're going to get the feeling that Ramsey's going for a very dark inversion, succumbing to madness, infatuated with a ghost, where their toxic relationship will only destroy them both. Only further highlighted is how he references it as the dark twin to the 80s aspirations on Astoria. And yet, honestly, I'm a little bit torn on the ending. Now, to me, there is some ambiguity implied by the fact that he's asking her to stay, capture a moment just there and now, even as she might just wish that he moves on to someone new, wrought of desperation before he must move on anyway, and he kind of knows it. But you know what? I could also see it representing the final tragic moment of succumbing to mad darkness together, even if I don't quite think it's the postscript that quite fits with Astoria's ending, or even the ending of Eleonora. But you know what? I can see both work in their own twisted ways, because, well, that's love for you. But as a whole, look, this is still a Marianas Trench album. I'm still convinced it's a great project with thematic weight and some stunning high points, and this is still a pop rock band that runs laps around so much of the competition with one of the best frontmen working today, and yet I'd be lying to myself if I said this was on the level of their best. And on some level, I don't even think I can fully blame Marianas Trench for this. An act like them needs to be able to adapt to the times, and the fact that they were able to adapt coming from a far better era of pop and pop rock to the sickly tones dominant today and make it thematically coherent, and the production work and potent speaks volumes of their talent. That said, while this is great, I'm not quite sure I'd put this among the best of 2019, especially given some of the steps that it had to take to get there, which is why I'm giving this a very strong 8 out of 10, an absolutely recommendation. But if you're coming from Astoria or Masterpiece Theater, just temper your expectations a little bit. It's not better than either of those. But hey, I'm seeing some rumblings in the underground that pop or even rock might well recover in the next couple of years as peak trap starts to sputter away. And you know, I'd just love to see what Marianas Trench finds when they step up and back into the light. We'll see. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. This is a bit of a longer review, but I had a lot to say. Marianas Trench brings that out of me. But hey, if you want to buy or stream the album, highly recommend you do. Links down there below. And I got the poll up there. I'm curious where the fans fall on this. I think a lot of my opinions seem to be in line, but really when you dig into the lyrics, there is more going on than I think they've been given credit. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And hey, if you guys want to help support the channel, link to my Patreon is right over there. I've currently got a poll going there right now to see what the next episode of Resonators is going to be, so happy to see you guys stop by. But till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.